TFA fam, what's up? What's going on? Matty D back with another edition of wide receiver cornerback matchups for week 4 this time. But you know the drill. First, let's go through last week, kind of talk about who we were on, some hits and some misses last week. But overall, last week was a pretty good week. We were on Emmanuel Sanders, who crushed Washington just like we thought he would. 5 catches for 94 yards and 2 scores. Almost had that 100-yard bonus. For those of you playing 100-yard bonus leagues or playing over on DraftKings. Definitely it's still a big week for Emmanuel Sanders. If you started him in season long, you should have had a good week. Kenny Golladay went 4 for 64 and 0. It wasn't really the shootout we thought would happen with the Giants and the Falcons last week, but Golladay still turned out 10 PPR points, so not too bad if you played him. Chase Claypool turned out 9 for 96 and 0 with a whopping 15 targets. So the matchup and the volume was definitely there for Claypool, just like we thought it would be. He unfortunately couldn't find the end zone, but nonetheless, good production. Got you close to 20 PPR points there for Claypool last week. And then our dud of the week was Rondale Moore. We had him as a start. Only got 2 catches for 1 yard and no touchdowns, though he was tackled at the 1-inch line on a rush attempt late in the game against Jacksonville. But Rondale Moore was definitely our dud. If you played him, definitely was not a good outcome for you there. And then we had Mike Evans was our fade last week, and we faded him because he was going up against Jalen Ramsey, but Jalen Ramsey actually ended up covering Chris Godwin for a decent portion of the game, even though Chris Godwin was in the slot. I guess the Rams felt like Godwin was able to do more damage than they could cover Evans on the outside, but Mike Evans ended up going for 8 for 106. Their game plan worked because, I mean, they held the Bucs to limited points and winning the game pretty handily. They're pretty impressive win for the Rams. So all in all, a decent week for us for the wide receivers last week, and that leads us to jump right into week 4. First up, we've got Robbie Anderson matching up with the Dallas Cowboys and Anthony Brown. We've attacked Anthony Brown each and every week this year, and it's paid off each week. You know, last week – playing against the Eagles, I mean, the Eagles just really didn't do anything against the Cowboys at all, but it was just a complete domination from start to finish. But outside of that, I mean, Mike Williams against Anthony Brown 2 weeks ago, and then week 1, Antonio Brown went off against Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown's allowed 16 catches on 22 targets, good enough for a 15 yards per completion. He's also allowed 2 touchdowns and a 119 passer rating. And this is to go with the loss of Christian McCaffrey due to injury for a couple weeks, as well as trading away Dan Arnold. McCaffrey's seen a 17% target share, and Dan Arnold leaves with an 11% target share. So that's 28% of the targets that are not going to be there this week. And while, yes, it should get spread around, you know, Terrace Marshall should see a good portion of slot activity, and Trimble, the backup tight end, should come in and get some targets from Dan Arnold. But Trimble's already seeing targets himself, so not projecting too much of a boost there for Trimble. So I think Robbie Anderson is the biggest benefactor of the targets that are not there due to injury or trade. And Anderson's already seeing 25% of the air yards. His issue has just been low volume with only a 13% target share. So as long as that target share can creep up closer to 20%, which I think it can this week, you know, playing against a high-powered Cowboys offense on the other side, that should force the Panthers offense to have to keep pace through the air in a matchup that Dallas can give up a lot of chunk plays, explosive pass plays to the Panthers passing game. So I like Robbie Anderson this week to have a big game. Next up is Brandon Ayuk. We were on him 2 weeks ago, and he did nothing. And then finally, week 3, he came out and did what he was supposed to do. He ran 39 routes. Compared to the routes he ran in week 2, only around 22. And so he's now back to a full-time player, because you compare him to Debo, who we know is a full-time player. Debo ran 42 routes compared to Ayuk's 39. So Ayuk is back in the mold. And Trent Sherfield only ran a handful of routes in week 3. So it is back to being Ayuk's starting job opposite Debo Samuel. And in this game against Seattle, Ayuk should get a mix of Trey Flowers and DJ Reed. Those corners play their sides, and Debo and Ayuk are going to rotate on the outside. Flowers has allowed 12 catches on 16 targets for 16 yards per catch to go with 1 touchdown and a 135 passer rating. Meanwhile, DJ Reed on the other side is allowing 13 catches on 22 targets for 12 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns, and a 111 passer rating. So definitely, no matter which side of the field Ayuk is on, He should be back in the mix, competing for top of the team targets with Deebo Samuel. So look for Ayuk to continue his production now that he is back to being a full-time player. Last up for our starts for the week, Jacoby Myers. He is going up against Tampa Bay, who is allowing the league worst fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Part of that is because Tampa Bay's offense is very good and teams are usually playing from behind. But the other factor is that Tampa Bay has the best run defense in the NFL, and teams just are able to throw on them how much of a pass funnel they are. They do not let you run the ball, but they absolutely let you throw the ball against them. So Jacoby Myers is going to be mainly in the slot here, facing off with Ross Cockrell, who has allowed 13 catches on 21 targets, good for 9 yards per catch, to go with 2 touchdowns and a 109 passer rating. So look for Jacoby Myers, who's getting 25% of the team targets and 30% of the air yards, to have a big game on Sunday night in the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick reunion. Then we have our fade or sit of the week. We're going right back to the well. Anybody going against Jalen Ramsey, we're going to fade them. And I don't think the Rams are going to move Ramsey around to other wide receivers like they did with the Bucs and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, just because there isn't really anybody else there for them to be overly concerned about from a one-on-one perspective outside of DeAndre Hopkins. So Ramsey, same things we said last week. He's only allowing a 61% catch rate, 7 yards per catch, 54 passer rating, and 0 TDs allowed. And DeAndre Hopkins should mainly face him for the majority of this game this week. And last year, Hopkins only had yardage totals in the 50s and the 30s in his 2 matchups with Jalen Ramsey last year. He did find the end zone once in the 2 games, but it's just not a good enough matchup for me to bank on him scoring a TD here. So I do like sitting DeAndre Hopkins this week if you have other options, and including these other options like we just mentioned, because the ceiling, I think, is just not going to be there for Hopkins, which surprisingly is a guy who has not been above a 20% target share for Arizona this year. He's only sitting at 18%, so he hasn't been the true alpha through 3 weeks so far. So I'm looking to sit DeAndre Hopkins this week. So that's going to do it for week 4. Like we always say, if you like the video, make sure you like the video. Hop in the Discord. Link is below. A lot of good community chat going on in there, so make sure you join. You can get any questions you have answered about start, sit, DFS, Dynasty. All the good stuff is in there, so make sure you hop in the Discord. With that being said, we'll see you next week.